You've been a witness and part of so many crises that South Asia has witnessed. So, what's different this time? What's new, or is it just the same?
I think there is some new elements in this crisis. Of course, there is a predictable pattern of behavior of India whenever they face an internal situation or an act of violence or an act of terrorism. Their proclivity is to blame Pakistan first. From the Indian side, we are seeing the kind of confusion right now that perhaps they've been caught in the trap of their own rhetoric because they've been blaming Pakistan without any credible evidence. The attitude of the United States of America, sometimes mostly it was a tilt towards India. This time, I think it is strict neutrality.
What has forced or enabled the current BJP leadership to resort to such drastic and draconian and sort of doomsday scenario based narrative?
This is RSS. This is the South Asian version of a neo-Nazi party, which is ideological, which is fascist, and which is anti-Islam and anti-Pakistan.
If we map the strategic choices made by Pakistan and India in the last 72 hours, how do you compare the dynamics of this escalation ladder?
Indian reaction was very knee-jerk and very aggressive. Our response was mature, measured, calm, and cool. I think we passed major tests and shown ourselves as a responsible country and as a responsible nuclear power.
The role of major powers in this particular crisis.
China, which has stood like a solid rock with Pakistan, as it has in the past. Russia, very responsible position. Iran, Saudi Arabia, Turkey. So you're talking of Muslim middle powers.
Viewers, very warm welcome to another episode of B News English program, Perspectives, in which we bring before you diverse perspectives from the leading strategic thinkers around the world on some of the most critical issues that the world faces today. Today, perhaps for the eighth time in the last 38 years, South Asia is again witnessing a rapidly escalating tensions between two nuclear-armed neighbors, India and Pakistan. In order to analyze its different aspects, compare it with the previous such crises, and the role of international community, we are joined by perhaps Pakistan's foremost strategic thinker, Senator Syed Hussain, who has been, a journalist, an analyst, a statesman, and chairman of Pakistan's Foreign Affairs Committee in the Parliament as well. Thank you so much for joining us, Senator Saab.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
It's always an intellectual pleasure and a great learning experience to have you with us. So let's start off by asking you, you've been a witness and part of so many crises that South Asia has witnessed. You remember the brass tacks, famous brass tacks, 1990 Kashmir crisis, Kargil, you were a federal minister during the 98 tests as well. And then the standoff in 2001 and 2, followed by Mumbai, and then Pulwama, and here we are again in a cyclical environment. So what's different this time? What's new, or is it just the same?
I think there is some new elements in this crisis. Of course, there is a predictable pattern of behavior of India whenever they face an internal situation or an act of violence or an act of terrorism. Their proclivity is to blame Pakistan first, but there are, I think, a few qualitative differences this time. Number one, I think that from the Pakistani side, there is a certain confidence and clarity on strategic terms that we are very clear what is the red line, and we will respond without any oohs and ahs, without any reservation in case Pakistan or any of its territory is subjected to aggression from India. So that is a given. And so I think that kind of strategic clarity is there. There's absolutely no ambiguity. And there's, I would say, a unity of command, and there's a national consensus on that. Number one. So that is, I think, something which is quite important and new. Second, I think from the Indian side, we are seeing the kind of confusion right now that perhaps they've been caught in the trap of their own rhetoric because they've been blaming Pakistan without any credible evidence, which even the New York Times mentioned in its issue of 28th of April, that they have not been able to present any evidence. So that kind of confusion is that so they have raised the bar in terms of rhetoric, in terms of frenzy, in terms of war hysteria, in terms of bigotry and hate speech. And so I think that the kind of irresponsible statements coming from a country which is a nuclear power is something new and different, because they are openly advocating elimination of Pakistan, erasure of Pakistan, nuking Pakistan. These kind of statements have come not from the layman, but from responsible people, including members of parliament and former ministers. So this is something new and different. And the third one is that the attitude of the United States of America, sometimes mostly it was a tilt towards India. This time, I think it is strict neutrality, equating Pakistan and India, treating them at par, and treating them at the same level. And also with a somewhat hands-off approach that let these two nuclear neighbors, as Trump rightly said on Friday evening, on 25th evening, figure it out themselves one way or the other. And I think that is something new and different.
I think that's a very apt, comprehensive analysis to start off, and which provokes me to ask you a follow-up question. BJP leadership has reasonable experience of indulging in crisis behavior with Pakistan on several occasions. The 1998 tests, which forced Pakistan to respond in kind. You remember, you were a federal minister then. And then we had the standoff during Vajpayee time. And then we had Pulwama crisis, and we had Mumbai crisis. So when we say that they have heightened the tension, unilaterally blamed Pakistan, used media to create alarm and jingoism, is there a qualitative difference? Because I noticed you mentioned elimination of Pakistan and things like that. What has forced or enabled the current BJP leadership to resort to such drastic and draconian and sort of doomsday scenario based narrative?
I think there's a qualitative difference between the BJP and the RSS. We are talking now of not of the traditional BJP, which was Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Mr. L.K. Advani, Mr. Jaswant Singh, Pramod Mahajan, Murli Manohar Joshi, who were reasonable actors, who were responsible, albeit right-wing. But this is RSS. This is the South Asian version of a neo-Nazi party, which is ideological, which is fascist, and which is anti-Islam and anti-Pakistan. So there's a qualitative difference. As Arundhati Roy said in a famous article in the New York Times soon after the annexation of occupied Kashmir on 15th August 2019 in the New York Times, she said, in today's India, RSS is the state. And RSS means an ideological, bigoted, religious, right-wing extremist organization that is at the hem of affairs of India, which has a bee in its bonnet, which takes pride in having a map of Akhand Bharat, Greater India, plastered on the walls of the Indian Parliament, Lok Sabha. So, they have a certain perspective. So that way you have to differentiate. Hence the vitriol, hence the hate speech, hence the animus, which is very deep-rooted. And I think that accounts for that, because it's an ideological approach. And Mr. Modi is an old Paravachik, as I say, a volunteer of the RSS, basically. So this is the RSS regime, rather than the traditional political party called the Bharatiya Janata Party. And I think that makes for the difference. And mind you, 2025 is the 100 years of the RSS. It was formed in 1925, inspired by Mussolini's fascism. Even their uniform, the khaki knicker, their white shirt, and the salute they have, it's a borderline Heil Hitler fascist salute. So I think that's the inspiration. So I call them the South Asian version of a neo-Nazi organization in terms of their mindset, in terms of their ideology.
That's a very important observation. Now, let's quickly compare the escalation dynamics across several domains that we are witnessing in the last 72 hours. Uh, in the political domain, there is a sense that it has actually allowed Pakistani political forces to mend fences and rally behind the political and military leadership. And there's a greater resolve being expressed by Pakistan's military as well. In terms of lawfare, we have responded that if you review or sort of abstain and hold Indus Water Treaty in abeyance, then we can reconsider Shimla Accord as well. And in the information domain, I think they are also, for the first time, reacting by blocking almost 16 channels of Pakistan. So if we map the strategic choices made by Pakistan and India in the last 72 hours, how do you compare the dynamics of this escalation ladder?
I think there's a qualitative difference. Let's compare two incidents of terrorism in two different countries within a span of 5 weeks. 11th March in Pakistan, there was this Jafar Express hijacking of a train by terrorists. And Indian media went ballistic. There were celebrations, there were jubilation, and they were as if they had conquered Balochistan. And it was minute by minute account, a lot of glee and joy in that in the misfortune of Pakistan. Conversely, when India had this thing, it was roundly condemned that killing of civilians is wrong and we condemn it. And there was no jubilation, there was no joy, rather a source of empathy for the victims. So there's that attitude. And this also, Mr. Ali, it also compares with the cricket match. When India beat Pakistan in Pakistan in a cricket match, we celebrated the Indian victory. When Pakistan beat India in a cricket match on Indian territory, they burned down the stadium. So there is this kind of the reactions that we have had. And on the escalation ladder, Indian reaction was very knee-jerk and very aggressive. Our response was mature, measured, calm, and cool, even in terms of rhetoric, although we took a very strong decision, and the strong decision was the closure of airspace, which is really hurting the Indian side. And on the threat of the aggression on water and hydel terrorism, we said we reserve the right to respond as and when India takes any punitive measures. So I think that our media has been measured, responsible. Our parliament, our political leaders have been very measured also. And it's been a facts-based approach. We said we welcome an independent, neutral international investigation. And as you know, on 24th of April, in the Indian Parliament, there was an all-parties meeting, and according to Indian press reports, the Indian intelligence and the security apparatus accepted that there was a serious security lapse, that an incident that took place 400 kilometers deep inside Indian-occupied Kashmir with a three-tier security around it, namely Pahalgam, high in the hills, that was a responsibility and failure of Indian intelligence, rather than blaming Pakistan. So I think that on all counts, Pakistan's response has been more calm, cool. And I think it also reflects a certain confidence that we are on the right side. Our hands are clean. We are not involved. We have not done any hanky-panky. And then why should we be put in the dock? Just because a neighbor sees Pakistan as a sore thumb sticking out, because we are the one country which is standing up to Indian diktat and opposing Indian hegemony in South Asia. So it's as simple as that. And I think Pakistan has come out, in my view, I think we passed major tests and shown ourselves as a responsible country and as a responsible nuclear power.
I think that's a very important message. Now let's come to the issue of international powers' role in crisis management and escalation control in South Asia. Traditionally, a lot of Western think tanks and academics have made lives and careers out of trying to advise New Delhi and Rawalpindi that how US can help mediate or manage these crises. This time, as you rightly pointed out, the Trump administration perhaps is not too keen in getting entangled in this crisis. But China seems to have played a more eager and timely role in trying to diffuse the tensions. I want your short analysis on the role of major powers in this particular crisis, particularly in the wake of the transforming world order, crumbling international institutions, and growing unilateralism.
I think that this crisis should also be seen in the context of historical geopolitical shifts. The global center of gravity has shifted from the west to the east. And I think there's no doubt President Trump is presiding over a declining America. And West itself is in decline. So their role, their clout, take tariffs, for example, that has totally backfired. People have resisted that. And next door to the United States, Canada has seen an election which is on a one-point agenda of standing up to American hegemony. And that person who had absolutely no chance of winning has won on that one-point platform that he said he will resist Trump's takeover of Canada. So that shows there's a global world order has shifted. The power center, the influence is no more controlled from the Western capitals, whether it's Washington, London, or Paris, or Brussels. And now, who are the active players? China, which has stood like a solid rock with Pakistan, as it has in the past. Russia, very responsible position. Iran, Saudi Arabia, Turkey. So you're talking of Muslim middle powers. You're talking of powers other than the traditional Western powers. They are the ones who are seen in the picture. You don't see the UK playing a role or France playing a role, except France just signed a deal with the Indians to sell them a $7.4 billion worth of Rafale aircraft. That's it. So I think that this also reflects, this is probably the first crisis in the post-Western dominated world, which is facing that. And that is why the key players are no longer the Western countries, but the countries of the global South. If you remember 2 years ago, it was China which brokered the deal, rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So that shows the changing global reality and the shift in the global power dynamics.
So my last and most important question from you, Senator Mushahid, is now what specific measures you can identify that both India and Pakistan can take, and also international powers can contribute in trying to manage and control this crisis and also diffuse the tensions?
I think that I would say in the first week after the crisis, because we are having this conversation a week after that unfortunate tragedy in Pahalgam, it is clear that Pakistan's narrative, Pakistan's position, Pakistan's policy has been vindicated. And there is this credible acceptance that Pakistan has a case stronger than the one put forward by India, because the Indian case is based on a lie, while Pakistan's case is based on the truth. And I think that there's a silver lining also, that no less than a person than the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, is focusing on Kashmir. When he says that I'm close to both India and Pakistan, and that the cause of the tensions between India and Pakistan are long-standing concerns and tensions over Kashmir, that means there's a recognition that the Kashmir dispute is at the root of Pakistan-India tensions, which demand is resolution of this core question. So I think that's a very good sign. And Pakistan, I think, should pursue this issue of proposing an independent, neutral international investigation. Secondly, we should mobilize the United Nations through two channels. One is the United Nations Military Observer Group in India and Pakistan, UNMOGIP. That has mandated that in the 750-kilometer long line of control on either side, they have patrolling, they have monitoring, and they should be giving a report to the UN Security Council. Third, Pakistan itself should go to the UN Security Council and make it clear that these are the facts, that India has violated the Indus Waters Treaty. It is threatening Pakistan with water aggression and hydro terrorism. which is totally unacceptable and which is totally illegal. And also, I think that the time has come for Pakistan to present the nature of the Indian threat, not just as a military threat, not just as a country trying to bully or browbeat a smaller neighbor, but also as an irresponsible nuclear power, which is ruled by religious fanatics and religious extremists. And I think that since this is the 100 years of RSS, perhaps some people can even go to court and say that this is the ruling party of India is a real live threat to peace, security, and stability in the world. And as you know, under Chapter 7, if there's a threat to international peace and security, the issue can be raised in the UN Security Council. And I think we should take advantage of our membership, and I think the gloves should be off. We have to come out and tell the truth about the nature of the Indian regime and the Indian establishment as this exists now, because the kind of hate speech and bigotry which is there, and they are almost appealing for ethnic cleansing and genocide of an entire community or an entire state based on their hatred and animus towards their neighbor, which is totally unacceptable in the 21st century. So we have a whole round of options, and I think that case will have many takers, many buyers in the international community, because it's based on facts rather than the fiction peddled by India.
Syed Mushahid, thank you so much for your valuable and insightful views and sharing a very timely and comprehensive analysis of the deepening crisis right now. And I think in order to conclude, I'd say 3 C's define what we have discussed today. There is greater confidence in Pakistan, there is greater clarity in Pakistan, and there is also consensus. Greater strategic and military capability, which I think India, in its own national interest, must recognize and respect so that peace, security, and stability is not harmed. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, and all the best, and good luck and good night.
Thank you.